I should have known something was wrong when my wife, Vivian, insisted on throwing a party to celebrate our renewed commitment. The woman who could never be bothered to remember our anniversary suddenly wanted to gather 30 of her closest frenemies on a rooftop overlooking the harbor. All on my dime, naturally. I am Elliot Granger, a historic home restorer. 5 years ago, Vivian married me when her trust fund ran dry and her father cut her off. The celebration was set for Saturday night at the Ocean View Terrace, a swanky venue costing more per hour than most people earn in a month. I paid the bills, arranged catering, and hired bartenders. Vivian's only job was to play the loving wife, but she could not even manage that. The night before the party, I brought up the idea of starting a family, reminding her that we were both settled and financially secure. Vivian turned to me, her expression colder than a New England winter, and told me she refused to ruin her body being an incubator for my children, suggesting I could barely keep up with her as it was. I ran 5 miles every morning and could bench press my college weight, but pointing that out would only trigger another fight. When I told her we would discuss it the next day, she capped her mascara with unnecessary force and declared the subject closed. That was the exact moment I should have cancelled the party, but a stubborn part of me still believed we could work things out. Saturday arrived grey and drizzling. I spent the entire day setting up the venue, testing the sound system, and arranging flowers, while Vivian spent hers at the spa getting ready for her performance. Guests arrived around 7. Vivian's usual crowd, including Skylar Henderson, whose husband owned half the banks in the county, and Jade Morrison, a local party planner who lived for other people's drama. They air-kissed and catalogued every flaw in each other's outfits, while their husbands stood near the bar discussing golf and stock portfolios. Vivian made a fashionably late grand entrance in a black designer dress, tapped her champagne flute with a knife, and called for everyone's attention. I assumed she was going to give a sweet speech about our marriage. Instead, with theatrical sadness, she announced that we were taking a break because poor Eli simply could not keep up with her needs, physically, emotionally, or financially. Cruel laughter rippled through the crowd. She gestured at me like a piece of cheap furniture, mocking my graying hair and calling my desire for a child a ridiculous obsession, asking why she should ruin her body for someone who could not maintain the lifestyle she deserved. The room devoured my humiliation, but Vivian made one fatal mistake. She assumed I would stand there and take it. I spoke up loudly, agreeing with her that no one could keep up with her ability to spend other people's money. The room went dead silent. I laid out the truth for all 30 guests to hear, pointing out that she had not worked a single day in 5 years, spent her mornings at the gym I paid for, her afternoons shopping with money I earned, and her evenings complaining about her boring life. When she tried to claim I was embarrassing myself, I pulled out my phone, opened my banking app, and transferred every single penny from our joint accounts into my personal account, right in front of everyone. I announced that the party was officially over, advised her to call her father for her trust fund, and walked out to the elevator, leaving a wall of stunned silence behind me. I spent the night sleeping on the couch in my woodworking workshop, unable to stand being in the house. By Sunday morning, news of the public split was spreading like wildfire, but I was already plotting my next move. Restoring old houses teaches you patience. You do not tear down walls until you know what is hiding behind them. I started auditing credit card statements, bank records, and phone bills. The first major red flag was a series of Venmo payments to Chase Devlin, a trust fund brat who pretended to be an artist. Receipts showed expensive dinners on nights Vivian claimed to be at book club, hotel charges in the city, and boutique lingerie I had never seen. My oldest friend, Frankie, called me from his waterfront tavern to check on the rumors. Over greasy eggs and strong coffee at Murphy's, Frankie confirmed my suspicions about Chase, describing him as a rich, pretentious trust fund kid driving a red Maserati. Frankie chuckled and asked if I planned to take her for everything she was worth, to which I replied that I was going to return her public humiliation with interest. First thing Monday, I hired Ruth Brennan, the most ruthless divorce attorney in the county. After reviewing my binder of financial infidelity and secret transactions, Ruth confirmed that Vivian's misuse of marital assets gave us immense leverage to freeze everything and leave her with nothing. Tuesday evening, Vivian showed up at my workshop desperate and disheveled after realizing I had changed the house locks. She begged to come home, claiming Saturday was just a drunken mistake and insisting she had been staying with her friend Sarah. I instantly exposed her lie, mentioning I had already spoken to Sarah, who had not seen her in a month. When she tried to deny everything, I held up a photo I had taken just an hour earlier, showing her BMW parked outside Chase's luxury apartment building. Faced with total silence, I told her the divorce papers were filed, closed the workshop door right in her face, and went back to work while she screamed and wept in the driveway before speeding off. Wednesday morning brought two massive developments. First, Vivian was officially served her divorce papers right at Chase's apartment. Second, my sharp-eyed 70-year-old neighbor, Mrs. Portoris, called to report that Vivian had been sneaking off for months mid-morning and returning disheveled, adding that she had just seen Vivian and Chase buying champagne and strawberries together mid-afternoon. Shortly after, Frankie alerted me to a Facebook post by Jade Morrison and an Instagram campaign by Vivian, where they painted me as abusive, bitter, and toxic while gathering sympathy from their entire social circle. Recognizing that Vivian was playing the victim card hard, I decided it was time to crash her narrative. Thursday evening, I attended the monthly mixer at the Harbor Club, dressed impeccably and exuding quiet confidence. I systematically made the rounds among Vivian's friends, casually dropping subtle hints about how expensive it was to support someone else's private art lessons and diverse interests. By the time Vivian cornered me near the coat check to accuse me of spreading lies, I simply smiled, reminded her that she wanted to be the center of attention, and walked away into the night as the room erupted in hushed gossip. The very next morning, another friend from the group, Margot Walsh, secretly met me at an out-of-town coffee shop. Disgusted by Vivian's cruelty because of her own past heartbreak with an unfaithful husband, Margot handed me a USB drive containing months of explicit emails, text messages, and photos between Vivian and Chase. Even more damning were text threads between Vivian and Skylar planning the rooftop party specifically to humiliate me, along with explicit threats to falsely accuse me of abuse if I fought back. When I brought the flash drive to Ruth, her eyes lit up. This was no longer a simple divorce, but concrete evidence of conspiracy, fraud, and defamation. Armed with this nuclear evidence, I decided to accelerate the pressure on Vivian's inner circle before our official court dates. On Sunday morning, I set up a promotional booth for my restoration business at the crowded farmers market, knowing Vivian and her friends treated it as their personal runway. When Skylar, Jade, and Vivian marched over to mock me in public, I calmly held up a manila envelope filled with recovered digital files, dropping explicit hints about restored documents, secret affairs, and Chase. Vivian turned ghostly pale and dragged her friends away in a panic. The very next morning, a frantic Vivian called my cell, screaming that someone had leaked scandalous photos of Skylar cheating on her wealthy husband, destroying Skylar's marriage instantly. Vivian accused me of waging war and threatened to play as dirty as possible. Recognizing that desperate people do dangerous things, Ruth immediately filed for an emergency restraining order to protect me. The retaliation came swiftly. That Tuesday night, a brick shattered my truck's windshield with a threatening note attached. By Friday, my mailbox had been flattened, trash was scattered across my yard, and the words, "wife beater," were spray-painted in bright red across my workshop door. Officer Marks took the police report, warning me that rumor had it Skylar's husband was divorcing her, and the entire group was out for blood. Ruth urged me to stay calm and let them hang themselves in court, but I had no intention of hiding behind paperwork while they vandalized my life. Instead, I used my deep connections with local business owners, the harbor police, and the venue managers to organize a community event at the Harbor Club under the guise of discussing local neighborhood security. I invited the press, local leaders, and sent targeted anonymous invitations to Vivian's entire social circle. When Monday's court date arrived, Ruth presented the judge with the mountain of evidence: the digital records from Margot, the financial receipts, police reports of the targeted vandalism, and the threat threads from Vivian's own phone. Facing total exposure, criminal conspiracy charges, and potential prosecution for fraud, Vivian's high-priced lawyer surrendered on the spot. The final divorce decree stripped Vivian of every claim to my assets, my business, and my home. Her father refused to bail her out after seeing the public scandal, forcing her to pack her bags and move into a cramped, run-down apartment far from the coast, while taking an entry-level retail job just to survive. Chase abandoned her the moment the drama threatened his own family's wealth, and her social circle evaporated overnight. Months later, as I sat on the porch of my freshly restored coastal home, enjoying the quiet evening breeze, I realized that standing up for myself on that rooftop was the best investment I had ever made.